All right, I've been looking forward to saying this. Welcome, mate, to the Leaders Who Care series.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, well, this is a little bit of a Commonwealth party here, Canada, Kiwi, the whole thing, even though you're not living there right now. But it's great to have you, Aidan, and I can't wait to be able to share, and you can share with everybody some of the cool stuff you're doing. This major experiment that we'll talk about that you're doing. So welcome, as I said, and if you can start by briefly introducing yourself, mostly about you, your family, where you're from originally, where you are now. I joke around with people saying if there's something you've never told anybody, but you'll want to do it now, go for it. And then we'll get into the other stuff. So hit it.
Yeah, so I'm Aidan, and I am originally a Kiwi from New Zealand. But I've been traveling a lot. I've lived in five continents now, and I'm currently living in the south of Brazil with my fiance, who's Brazilian. One thing that I haven't told a lot of people, but is that I have been kidnapped and left on an island, on a rock off the coast of Thailand. So it's something that doesn't happen every day.
You think? You didn't tell me that. For real kidnapped?
Well, yeah, I got drugged on a beach, and I woke up on a boat with these sort of Thai mafia type. And after taking my money, they left me on a rock and scooted off and left me in the middle of the ocean on a tidal rock for about 6 hours before I got found by some passerbys. So
Only Toledo. There used to be an old show when I was a kid called Gilligan's Island, where they got stranded on an island, but
I remember.
they weren't kidnapped. Now, that's one of the best or worst answers I've ever had, a type of thing. I know you did tell me that you were looking for a girlfriend or a wife, and you made a decision, Brazil, right?
I'd always had a feeling since I was a teenager. My mum said she remembers me clearly telling her that I'm not going to have a girlfriend or a wife from New Zealand. She was going to be from Brazil. And sure enough, it took me 25 years from then to pluck up the courage and go there and find her. But yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Well, if it would have happened 10 years earlier, then you wouldn't have found your fiance, suppose.
Exactly. It's
So
all perfect.
exactly. Um, well, what were you like as a kid? Let's go to that. What were you like as a kid or a teenager? Were you organizing other kids? Did you have the infamous lemonade stand to make a whole bunch of money, or sports, music, video? What were you up to?
I think I played a lot of sports. I felt I grew up in maybe a little bit of a dysfunctional family in my younger years, and so sport was my escape. I would go down, wake up with the sun, and go down to the tennis court or get out to the golf course, and just individual stuff where I could just get away from everything and spend time alone. But yeah, it was a sport for me was my big thing, I think.
Was it like football slash soccer? Or I know it probably wasn't ice hockey. 'Cause that's mine.
Yeah, it was. We don't have enough ice, I don't think, down where I am. But we had
I don't know.
we
You guys
had
drink. You guys drink a lot, so there's plenty of ice.
oh yeah, we for sure. We were I was more of a tennis, squash, badminton, racket sort of sports. And golf. We had a golf course. New Zealand is very cheap and accessible for golfers, so it's a good sport for parents to just drop their kids off there in the morning and pick them up at night. So it's a good escape. Yeah, I still had a little bit of an entrepreneurial flair. I remember trying to dig up the back garden and plant a whole bunch of fruit and veggies to sell on the side of the road. But yeah, it's always sort of been there, an element of that, I guess, as well.
Well, I love that because I generally find threads with people from what they did as kids and moving forward and how they acted, etc., type of thing. So I can see a thread already, but digging up the ground for for that and what we're going to talk about. So you describe yourself. Let me get the quote. You describe yourself as driven, passionate, and creative serial entrepreneur, looking to be the first person to figure out ways to spread love and abundance to the farthest corners of the earth through technology and business. Um, can you share when and from where this drive for that entrepreneurship came, or did I just hear you when you said you dug up the ground for whatever?
Yeah, I think growing up poor and without seeing a lot of people have things that I didn't always made me sort of want to try and have a life where I got out and got away from where I was, because I just felt there was something more.
Hmm.
Um, So I think that's really where I saw being creative and, you know, that entrepreneurial sort of mindset as a potential way out to a life that I, you know, a life that I would have imagined would be more more what was in store for me, you know.
I love it. Oh, that was interesting. I said I love it. I didn't even expect to say that. You know, Einstein, I didn't see it live, but apparently he wrote a letter to his son that his son was supposed to after he passed away, and he said that he should have invested. He wished he would have invested more of his time, which has in something that had the most abundance of anything in the world, and that's love. Let us know your experiences that led to the focus that he said he wished he would have done more, which is love.
Well, without knowing it, when I was younger, I was always following my heart, you know, and you know, as I said, I had a bit of a dysfunctional childhood, and it led me to the point where I kind of ran away to get away from where I was, and I ended up in Australia first, which was a different country for a 16-year-old. But then I got into a jam there, and I decided I needed to do like a 180. And I don't remember exactly where I got the inspiration. It was a movie or it was something I'd seen where someone threw a dart at a map of the world and just went there. And I had a globe in this office where I was staying. So I spun the globe, I put my finger on it, and I landed on the Philippines. And so I literally bought a ticket there, and was an illegal alien. I got stuck there with no money. And a Filipino family that I met when I first got there took me in, gave me love when I didn't have it. And yeah, I remember one day sitting down with my Filipino dad just saying, how could I ever repay you for saving my life? And he's like, well, when you're in a position to pay it forward to somebody, pay that kindness forward, consider the debt repaid. And that was the moment. I remember it very clearly, making a promise to myself over 20 years ago, this was, that I would find a way to pay that love forward to as many people as possible, while they're still alive, hopefully, so that I can show them that that seed of love that they planted has grown into something. Because I thought that'd be a really cool way to show them the respect and pay them the homage of, you know, that I felt was worthy of the act of love that they'd given me. So
That's amazing to me. And you know, when you hear stories like that, you know, what great people that that first of all took the chance to do that, brought you in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what's the chances? And you know, people say things happen for a reason. There's a plan or this, that. What's the chances the dot hits the Philippines, hits that family, et cetera, et cetera? It blows your mind in a way if you think about it.
oh,
Um,
it really does. I often look back and think about that, because sometimes if I get worried about something or feel overwhelmed, I remind myself of that moment, that I wouldn't change anything in my life now, but get reminded of that moment when the whole world was spinning multiple times a second. And I think of the fact that one day I thought maybe there was a mosquito that flew past me, and I swiped and then I pushed, and I'm in Egypt. And then I started to think, well, maybe there was a mosquito and I don't remember it, and I was going to be somewhere else, and that mosquito caused me to go to the Philippines. So yeah, it's a nice little reminder that of how little control we actually have. You know, you just got to go with it.
Yeah, or you know, we'll talk about influencers in a little bit. You had a mosquito influencer. Um,
Yeah. I often think about that little guy, right? Yeah. What do you
oh,
think?
man. Well, you know, I love how you coined the world's greatest experiment. Can you I want to get right into it. Can you tell us all about love farms, like why the name, how they work, and then we'll get into like the expected benefits for what we call omni wins for everybody to win. Let's start with that.
Yeah. So uh, I guess a love farm is essentially a community that we've identified living in extreme poverty, somewhere out there in the world that's having they've got no opportunity to work. They're very little in terms of healthcare, proper accommodation, the basic needs of life, right? And we go into these communities and we teach them the latest science around meditation and generating love. Like basically we teach them to farm love by sending their love out around the world to people and businesses that are in our experiment, so we can see what happens to the people who are receiving love, what happens to the people that are sending love, and can we create a model that can grow exponentially faster than problem when it comes to solving poverty.
So first of all, it's Love Farms with an F, like real farms, not PH, right?
Correct.
Just so people
Yes.
know. And
Correct.
and how do you identify those places, and how do you go about educating them in that way?
Well, we're just I guess if we just go back a little bit, the reason that we started doing this was looked at the problems that we're facing as humanity right now, and obviously poverty and inequality is a huge part of that. And I just looked at the current models for nonprofits and charity, and just thought it really, I can't see the current solutions that are being tabled. I can't see them growing fast enough to ever fix the problem. They can only really put a patch on in places. And it just struck me being like, my sort of entrepreneurial brain, or I love to think outside of the box and think of like anything's possible. I was like, there's got to be models out there that haven't been thought of yet if we apply more of an entrepreneurial mindset to it, that we could figure out how to find a solution that can simply just grow faster than the problem, so we can actually one day end it. So that was really the idea behind it. And the realization I had was that in order for that to ever happen, we have to look at these places that are the hardest hit, where people seemingly have nothing. And we need to identify what have they got that would have enough value, unrealized value, at the moment, that if we were to realize the value and figure out how to harness it and deliver it where it could go, if that value could be enough to give them everything that they needed to take care of their needs and their family's needs. And after looking at everything, the one thing that really struck me was that they all have, and after spending a lot of time in these places, they have love, they have huge hearts, they're really caring, and they have to look out for each other, and they've got a sense of community and togetherness and looking out for one another. And they all have families, they all have people they love and kids, and they don't have a way to look after them. And it struck me when I started to find out about all this science that's emerging around love and how it makes plants and trees go faster. It's incredible for mental health, for disease, for all sorts of things. It's like, man, what if we can harness that and we can prove that people need it? And then maybe we can create value that way, so that we can lift people out of poverty, simply with, harnessing the power of their heart.
Yeah, I think it's so real, so amazing, and it answers, maybe you're taking over for Einstein in the sense of showing that type of thing, what he talked about, that there's so much abundance of it, and he wish he would have talked more about it. And one thing, I would say that you obviously you're giving people there is when you give people hope and they already have a community and belonging, which is the thing that fills people's hearts and souls more than anything, is belonging, then you can do anything, basically anything. When a coach gives a player hope and belief, the player will do everything for that coach. Since I love doing sports analogies, and it in a way, it sounds like you're doing that. And it also, speaking of threads, what your adopted family did, basically gave you hope and love to pass that on as well. And look what's happening there. So it's not, it could be the greatest experiment for sure. And maybe it's even beyond an experiment. You kind of know it works. Now it's just a matter of and when you give people hope, they just, it's everything that people want is hope.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, I agree totally with that. And, one of the things that the current charity nonprofit models, I think, don't do very well is people are always, who are in poverty, are looking for a handout almost, or looking for someone to be generous, and because they need it, there's no other way. But if you can create value, if you can show that person who really believes that the world's forgotten about them in these places. You know, even their own governments don't look after them. They've got nothing taken care of. They literally have to fight every day to survive. If we could go in and we could show them how they were valuable, and how we could perhaps show examples of businesses that were sent love from the communities who had transformed their businesses, or people who were sick could receive love, who'd gotten better. We can now empower these people in these communities and show them how they're changing the world. So they're not only earning their own money to take care of their own community, but they're also getting a sense of self-worth, and you know, we're showing them how they can change the world. And I think that's a much more exciting you know, possibility when it comes to finding a solution that can work to really eliminate this problem, you know, for good.
That's why I love the thread between your adopted parents and you, because that's kind of what they did. I mean, you weren't in
Yeah.
abject poverty or whatnot, at least not like those people, but that's kind of what they did
Yeah,
in
it is. I had a realization that what it was they'd given me a touch point of love when I needed it the most. And um, I know I mentioned to an earlier discussion that in New Zealand, where I'm from, we have the highest rate of suicide for young men in the world. So I've been very well aware of that and been exposed to it. And I realized, like, you know, in those moments that where life is really hard and everybody has them in their own versions, you know, you're either lucky, like I was in that moment, to have that touch point of love at such a crucial moment, or you're not, you know. And my thoughts went to the people that don't have that point. And I thought, man, if we can create something where anyone anywhere can tap into this pipeline of love when they need it, if it's always there and we can just let people know how to access it, perhaps we could help a large number of people when they're in their most trying times, when they feel disconnected from love.
Yeah, which and you've kind of talked about. I want to talk a little bit more about the expected benefits. You know, I said we create omni wins when we get retained by organizations or clients to amplify whatever impact they want to make, and then we bring others in to join them on that impact, and it grows. Um, you're talking about the benefit to the people that you're really helping there. They're getting help by seeing the benefit they're giving to others. How do you see that translating into funding to help you to support you on this, whether it's what I call social profits, because I don't like the term nonprofit. You know, there's social
Yeah.
profits or corporates or whomever. How do you see the overall omni-win playing out?
Well, I've really thought very, very deeply and carefully about this before we put this together. And the way that I see it is that we're essentially proving love can be a currency, like function just like a currency. And at first thought it sounds a bit crazy off the wall, but when you think about what love can mean for different people, you know, if you're hungry and you don't have food to feed your children, love is food on the table, you know, or a job. If you're working, you know, 18 hours a day in an office, you're making tons of money and you've got no connection with people and no love. I mean, love could be someone sending you love. It's really, you've got to look at the whole thing. And I think that what I realize is all the problems that are in the world that I've observed, I believe are caused by an imbalance of love somewhere. Someone somewhere along the line is not getting the love that they should be. And with a love-based solution, everybody that touches the ecosystem should have a win. And so an example of what that looks like for this is, yes, like the people living in poverty need a way to provide for their families and feel self-worth and feel valuable. So we take care of them. We teach them to meditate. We turn Maslow's hierarchy of needs upside down, and they actually earn their keep and look after their communities and their families by taking care of their inner world and then sharing it with the world. The people in the experiment, which essentially are our donors, right? So they get all the benefits of giving to a nonprofit and helping a worthy cause, because these people really are worthy of help. But they get something different too. They get almost like a little lottery ticket, because this is where the experiment part comes in. We don't know what's going to happen when they're receiving a ton of love back to them, you know, meditated on them every day. But all the science suggests it could be pretty fantastic, could create miracles, could create all sorts of magic. So they're getting a win from that as well. Companies that participate have the chance to give their customers products and services that are measurably infused with love, that their customer can actually see all the love that's been infused into that product. So they get a win, they get to do good, but they also get to grow their business and help them become more abundant. It helps the company culture, I'm sure, this kind of project. And the best thing about the whole system is the more evidence that we can get of how love can impact your business, your personal life, a sick friend, the more people come on board into the experiment, the more love is generated. And given that the love is generated by the world's poorest communities who are lifted out of poverty, we start to radically shift the amount of people that are in poverty. So that's the big vision. That's how.
No,
Yeah.
I love it. I could see ABC company with whatever 1,000 employees, and the employees getting engaged and accepting that love and giving the love, and that gets into their work performance and their culture and the pride of in the company, and on and on and on, and turns into better business, not from a standpoint only of profit, but also profit because of that, as well as great branding, great reputation, great community, the whole bit. How do you explain that love is in the product? I think people are probably still wondering what that looks like, but doesn't mean you have to see it, because you can't. Well, you can sort of see love, but you feel it more than see it.
Yeah, well, we don't necessarily see it yet, but this is really one of the things that makes this experiment so interesting to me, is that maybe we can see it, or at least see the tangible results of it once we've done it, because we've never
Yeah.
really had a platform or a way to accurately measure and direct massive amounts of love. So that's what we've sort of built, is the platform that can do that. And once we get people in it, and businesses who say, we want to be the first companies in our country, in the world, in our niche, to have love infused into our products, then maybe we'll start to see it. And if we start to see it, it changes the game completely, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you if this is how you see this duplicatable, but I can kind of answer my own question, but I'm not going to. I'll let you answer it. And you've kind of led to that. This is very duplicatable.
Very much so. It can be scaled. Like, once we build the framework, which is essentially just the way to connect people who have love to give with people that want to infuse love into what they do, the business, their lives, we can just plug them in and connect them with technology. So it really can be scaled super fast. But a simple example that I talk about, there's a lot of research and experiments where they've taken plants, like you might have seen the one with rice, where they took rice and they speak
Absolutely.
loving kindness to the rice. And the difference between the rice that had love and the rice that didn't is just astronomical. And this has been repeated by school kids, by people of all ages, and like
Totally.
all over the world. What happens if you're an apple farmer who decides that you want to be the first farmer in the world to measurably have love infused into your crop? I mean, if nothing else, I know I'd like to buy an apple that's been meditated on thousands and thousands of times every month. But what if we can show that the crop, just like the rice experiment or the other plants experiment, what if we can show that the crop that receives love grows faster, or the apples are more nutritionally dense, or Whole Foods is willing to pay a higher price for an apple that can be proven that it was farmed with love.
Versus
Then,
versus pesticides.
yeah, right. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we hope to be able to show one day down the track over time, because at the point we can show that it's a smart investment to put love into your product, service, company, or friend, or mother, or whoever it is, then it becomes a no-brainer. You don't need to understand energy. You don't need to be, in the woo-woo if that's what you think it is. We can simply say, look at the data. Here it is. It's smarter for you to put love into your product and help these people that need it. And the net result will be your company will be more profitable, and you'll feel better, and your staff will feel better, and the world will be better. Like, nobody loses.
Yeah, you bet. And you should put that rice experiment. I hadn't thought of that for a while, but it's an amazing experiment. And you're right, kids have done it in school and stuff like that. And if you notice, I have a huge plant back there,
Yeah,
and there's a big painting with a heart behind it.
I can see
And
it.
I actually hadn't thought of that before, but I will admit to the world that I do talk to the plants. I'm not going to tell you if they talk back to me because they'll start coming to get and take me away or something. But I think it has been proven too that, you sing to plants, talk to plants and whatnot. There is an impact, whether it's energy, whatever you want to call it. We call it love. So I think it's fantastic. You mentioned tech before. The fourth industrial revolution has kind of been defined by tech, AI, technology, VRA, and all that stuff. But the fifth has been talked about as as humanity at the end of the day. And we intersect talent and impact, all the time in everything we do. Love farms certainly emphasize humanity. That's a no-brainer. Talk about the tech that you're talking about that impacts the farms, or how are you using it to connect people? How are you using tech? How is it involved?
Well, we've built a technology platform which essentially is the framework or the way that we connect the love with the recipients, but it's also able to be utilized like functions like a wallet, a credit card, a bank account for someone in the farm who's unbanked, right? So every time the love farmer completes a meditation, they receive a credit on the app, which has a monetary value. And that monetary value, that value can be transacted in the community at any of the vendors that service that community. So what it does, it literally enables us, we're able to use technology and the humanity side of it, the love, to literally materialize food for a starving family who's hungry. They can sit together and meditate and turn their heart's energy into food minutes later. So the technology is a really vital part. We're using it in a very basic way to start with, but because we're now connected globally through the internet and through smartphones in people's pockets, it's a very powerful tool to be able to connect the two together, the humanity with the technology. But to take it a little step further, at the beginning, right now, what we can do is we can measure the love farmer's time and presence, right? Which are the two basic levels. We've got it done in a way where they can't be washing the dishes or anything. If they're sending love, they're fully present, their thumbs are on the screen, we're measuring it, and we can measure the amount of time that they were connected. But there are devices now that can measure the frequency that we're vibrating at. And so they're already becoming very affordable. So where we want to take it is very much get it to the point where love farmers start at a base level. We teach them how to meditate. They become better and better until we can actually get them to drop into the frequency, the most powerful frequency of love and vibration, and be able to reward them accordingly. So they actually can get paid for getting better at sending love out to the world.
Man, I think you need to hire the Beach Boys for good vibrations or something. While that's going on.
Totally. Supertramp, give a little bit. Like there's so many.
No, no, I think it's spectacular for all the reasons that you talked about. And just briefly, we were talking before about how AI is going to play a part, and how love language and positive language is being we're working on it now. People smarter than me are working on it, but I'm involved where get that language into AI so AI comes back with that, which is fascinating based on what you're talking about, that being between humans, that talking about exchanging love with machines in that sense, which is another thing to blow your mind, which we won't talk about now because it'll take too long. But I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and I look forward to talking more about it. And in LA we say keep them wanting more, because that way we'll have to do a sequel, and I think we'll have to probably do a sequel here. But I do have one last question and this is more personal, if you will. But Klein told me, it's 2021. He told me after the pandemic here, he said, "Man, 2020 was the year that flew by slowly." I thought, what a great statement, because sometimes we all feel it was yesterday, and sometimes it's years ago at the same time for some reason. And it's 2024 now. And with all that, everything that's gone on, what are you most grateful for? And also, what are you most hopeful for?
Well, I think there's been a massive shift after the pandemic, and people were forced to look inside more. They had more time to be alone with their thoughts and perhaps explore some of these other ideas and concepts that they might not have had a chance to do otherwise. And I certainly think it's accelerated the consciousness really of the planet. I feel like the discussions like now that you could farm love and receive love, I absolutely think people are already much more open to it than they were before the pandemic. I've
Right.
just noticed. Um, and yeah, I tend to think that someone once told me how time speeds up relatively for us, and I've thought about it a lot, but it really resonates with me that, like, you know, when you're 20, 1 year is 5% of your life, so it feels like 5%, but every year after that the percentage goes down. Time actually speeds up because of how you perceive it
Yeah,
in
I've
your own.
noticed.
Yeah, and so it's like it's exciting and scary, and you know it's exciting in the sense that we can now bring ideas like this to the table and have we've got the technology, we've got the scientific evidence, we've got the stuff that starts to prove the magic is real, you know, and I think that's really exciting. So the further that we move along in this direction, I think we're just going to discover some incredible things that change the way we operate in this world.
No, that's great. Well, I'm grateful that you are a leader who cares. So you've proved it now to the world here, and I'm actually hopeful for the same reason that you are a leader who cares and has the the courage. I don't know if that's the right word, but the gumption, the guts to actually go out and do it, and not be, what they say, a man doesn't talk about love farms like we were talking before or whatever, but maybe a real man does talk about love farms because of what it stands for. So thanks for all you do and for being on the series. Really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure.